Ladies and gentlemen, I'm Steve Harvey. And today I want to talk to every woman who has ever sat by her phone waiting on a text. Every woman who has replayed a conversation in her head trying to figure out what she said wrong. Every woman who thought if she just cared a little more, gave a little more, loved a little harder, he would finally step up. I'm here to tell you something that might sound backwards at first, but it's powerful. The power of not caring makes him chase you. Now, when I say not caring, I don't mean being cold, bitter, or disrespectful. I don't mean playing childish games. I'm talking about detaching your value from his attention. I'm talking about not making a man the center of your universe when he hasn't earned that position. See, the moment a man feels like he is your only source of happiness, your only option, your only focus, that's the moment he relaxes. But when he realizes you are fulfilled, busy, happy, and whole with or without him, something shifts inside of him. Men are wired to pursue what feels valuable and slightly out of reach. That doesn't mean you have to play games, act uninterested, or pretend you don't like him. It means you understand a fundamental truth about human nature. People place higher value on what they have to invest in. When something is handed to us too easily, without effort, without challenge, without patience, we subconsciously rank it lower. The same principle applies in relationships. If you make yourself constantly available, emotionally, physically, mentally, you remove the space that allows him to step forward. When you reply instantly every single time, cancel your plans to fit his schedule, adjust your standards to keep him comfortable, and overextend yourself to prove you're different, you unintentionally communicate that securing you requires no real effort. When there is no effort required, there is no pursuit. See, pursuit is not about manipulation. It's about investment. A man feels connected to what he invests his time, energy, and resources into. When he has to plan, when he has to think, when he has to prioritize you in his schedule, when he has to step outside his comfort zone to impress you, that investment builds attachment. But if you're always the one initiating, always the one adjusting, always the one pushing things forward, you rob him of the opportunity to invest. Being slightly out of reach does not mean being emotionally unavailable. It means you have a full life. It means you have responsibilities, passions, friendships, and goals that existed before him and will continue whether he's there or not. When a man sees that you are busy because you are productive, not because you're trying to teach him a lesson, he recognizes that your time has value. And people respect what has value. A woman who drops everything for a man she barely knows sends a message that her world revolves around him. A woman who says, "I'm free Thursday evening," instead of rearranging her entire week, sends a different message. You can have access to me, but you must fit into my life respectfully. That subtle difference changes the dynamic completely. Men are competitive by nature. When something feels exclusive, rare, or earned, it activates their desire to step up. But if you treat him like he's already your husband on the second date, if you give him loyalty, commitment, and priority before he has shown consistency, you eliminate the natural progression that builds attraction. Attraction grows in stages. It grows in curiosity. It grows in anticipation. Anticipation is powerful. When he doesn't fully know your schedule, when he has to ask to see you, when he wonders what you're working on, when he sees that other people value your presence, his mind engages. He begins to think about you more. He begins to plan more intentionally. He begins to show up more consistently because he understands that access to you is not automatic. This doesn't require drama. It requires discipline. Discipline to not overtext. Discipline to not overshare too quickly. Discipline to not overcommit before he has proven himself. It's about pacing. Relationships that move too fast often burn out because there was no buildup, no tension, no space for desire to grow. When you allow a man to work a little, when you allow him to call first sometimes, plan the date, confirm the time, make the effort, you're not being difficult. You're allowing him to step into his masculine energy. You're giving him room to pursue, and pursuit builds pride. A man feels proud of what he earns. If he feels like you're slightly out of reach, not unreachable but not guaranteed, mean he's in. He pays closer attention, becomes more intentional. Because deep down, he knows that valuable things are not given away freely. They are earned, protected, and appreciated. And when you understand that, you stop overextending yourself to keep someone. You let them rise to meet you. Emotional independence is magnetic in a way that is hard to describe, but impossible to ignore. When you are emotionally independent, you are not cold, you are not detached from your feelings, and you are not pretending you don't care. What you are doing is refusing to let someone else's behavior control your emotional stability. That level of self-control sends a powerful message without you ever having to say a word. Too many women believe that if they react strongly enough, explain clearly enough, love intensely enough, or sacrifice deeply enough, they can inspire consistency in a man. But emotional pressure does not create commitment. In fact, it often does the opposite. When a man feels like every delayed text results in frustration, every busy day results in suspicion, and every mood shift results in confrontation, he starts associating the relationship with stress instead of peace. And men move toward peace. Emotional independence means you don't panic when he takes longer to respond. You don't assume the worst when he needs space. You don't allow your imagination to create problems that don't exist. Instead, you remain grounded. You continue your day. You focus on your responsibilities. You keep your emotional balance intact. That calmness is powerful because it shows security. Security is attractive. When a man senses that you are secure within yourself, that you are not anxiously waiting for validation, that you are not measuring your worth by the frequency of his attention, he feels relief. He feels like he's dealing with a woman, not a storm. And that relief makes him more comfortable investing emotionally. When you overreact to inconsistency, you give it power. When you stay steady, you take that power back. This does not mean you tolerate disrespect. Emotional independence does not equal low standards. It means you observe behavior clearly without losing yourself in it. If he is inconsistent, you notice it. If he is unreliable, you acknowledge it. But you don't beg him to change. You don't try to convince him to see your value. You simply adjust your access and your availability accordingly. That kind of response forces clarity. Instead of arguing, you create space. Instead of pleading, you pull back. Instead of demanding reassurance, you evaluate whether his actions align with your expectations. And here's the truth. When a man realizes you are not emotionally dependent on him for your happiness, he feels the possibility of losing you. That possibility triggers effort. Men are highly responsive to perceived loss. If he thinks no matter what he does you will stay, he relaxes. But if he senses that your presence in his life is conditional upon mutual respect and effort, he recalibrates. Emotional independence communicates that you are choosing him, not clinging to him. It also protects your dignity. When you don't over-explain yourself or over-justify your feelings, you maintain mystery and strength. There is power in not needing constant reassurance. There is strength in not demanding constant validation. When your confidence comes from within, his behavior becomes information, not a threat. And let's be clear, emotional independence requires self-work. It requires you to build a life that fulfills you outside of romance. It requires you to heal past wounds that make you anxious. It requires you to trust that if one person walks away, another opportunity will come. That belief changes how you move. When a man interacts with a woman who is emotionally independent, he feels like he is with someone who wants him but does not need him to survive. That distinction is everything. Wanting someone is attractive. Needing someone feels heavy. And men respond to lightness. The more stable you are within yourself, the more he feels safe investing in you, because he knows he is not responsible for carrying your entire emotional world. He knows he is adding to your happiness, not sustaining. And when a man feels like he is adding value to a strong woman's life, he rises. Silence can be more powerful than confrontation when it is used from a place of strength instead of fear. Most people think power in a relationship comes from speaking louder, explaining more, or demanding answers immediately. But real power often shows up in restraint. It shows up in knowing when not to react. It shows up in choosing composure over chaos. When a man pulls back, becomes distant, or shifts his energy, the natural instinct for many women is to close the gap instantly. You want to ask what's wrong. You want to fix it. You want to clarify the status. You want reassurance. That reaction is human. But here's what happens when you immediately confront every shift. You teach him that you will do the emotional labor for both of you. You teach him that if he withdraws, you will chase. And once that pattern is established, it becomes the dynamic. Silence interrupts that pattern. When he pulls back and instead of panicking, you continue living your life calmly, you create space for him to feel the distance he created. If you rush in to fill that space, he never experiences the absence of your energy. He never wonders. He never questions. But when you allow the silence to sit, when you allow him to notice that you are not overcompensating, something begins to shift internally. Curiosity is powerful. A man will start to think, why isn't she reacting? Or why isn't she asking questions? Is she okay without me? That internal dialogue is important because now he is the one thinking about the relationship. He is the one feeling the gap. He is the one considering the possibility that his withdrawal may not produce the usual response. Silence also preserves your dignity. There is nothing attractive about pleading for clarity from someone who is choosing confusion. If a man wants to communicate, he will. If he values the connection, he will maintain it. When you chase explanations from someone who is inconsistent, you lower your leverage. But when you observe quietly and adjust accordingly, you maintain control over your emotional space. This doesn't mean you never communicate. Healthy relationships require communication. But there is a difference between expressing yourself once with confidence and repeatedly demanding reassurance. Silence becomes powerful when it follows clarity. If you have already expressed your standards and he still shifts, your silence becomes a statement. It says, I notice I'm not impressed. Another powerful aspect of silence is that it reveals true intention. If he cares, he will close the distance. If he values you, he will reach out. If he senses your energy changing and it matters to him, he will address it. But if he was only comfortable when you were doing all the emotional work, he will drift. And that drift is information. It saves you time. It saves you years of investing in someone who only responds to pressure. Silence also strengthens your emotional discipline. When you resist the urge to send that extra text, when you resist the urge to check in unnecessarily, you prove to yourself that you are not controlled by anxiety. You build internal confidence. You realize that you can sit with uncertainty without collapsing under it. That self-trust changes how you show up. And let's be honest, constant confrontation often leads to defensiveness. When someone feels attacked or pressured, they shut down further. But silence creates reflection. It creates room for accountability. It allows a man to come to his own conclusions instead of feeling cornered into them. When used wisely, silence is not weakness. It is strategy. It is poise. It is emotional intelligence. It is understanding that not every action deserves a reaction. Sometimes the strongest move you can make is stepping back and allowing the other person to decide whether they are willing to step forward. And when you master that, you stop fighting for attention. You start observing effort. Your time is your leverage, whether you realize it or not. Time is the one thing you can never get back. You can earn more money, meet new people, create new opportunities. But once you give someone your time, it's gone. That's why how you distribute your time in a relationship communicates your value more than words ever could. When a man believes you will always be available, no matter how little effort he gives, he subconsciously relaxes. Not because he's intentionally trying to hurt you, but because human nature responds to certainty. If he feels certain that you're not going anywhere, even if he's inconsistent, he doesn't feel urgency. And without urgency, effort decreases. But when he understands that your time is precious, structured, and not automatically his behavior shifts. Scarcity creates appreciation. If he has to plan ahead to see you, if he has to confirm a time because your schedule is genuinely full, if he has to respect your boundaries because you won't tolerate last-minute inconsideration, he begins to treat your presence as something valuable. A lot of women give away premium access at a discount. They prioritize a man who hasn't proven consistency. They cancel plans with friends. They rearrange work schedules. They sacrifice personal goals, all in hopes that flexibility will be appreciated. But what often happens instead is familiarity. And familiarity without earned respect can breed complacency. When you treat your time casually, he will too. Leverage is not about manipulation. It's about standards. If a man texts you at the last minute with no real plan and you consistently accept it, you are teaching him that minimal effort is sufficient. But if you respond calmly and say, I'm not available tonight, but I'm free Thursday, you are teaching him structure. You are showing him that access to you requires intention. That small adjustment does something powerful. It filters out men who are only looking for convenience. A man who is serious will adjust. He will plan ahead. He will step up. But a man who only wants easy access will fade away. And that's not a loss, that's alignment. Your time also reflects your self-worth. When you are investing in your career, your health, your family, your passions, you are building a life that feels full. A full life makes you less likely to tolerate inconsistency because you are not relying on one person for excitement or validation. That independence naturally increases your standards. Men respect boundaries they can. If you say you value your time but constantly compromise it for him, your words lose weight. But when your actions match your standards, your value becomes undeniable. You don't have to argue. You don't have to threaten. Your schedule speaks. There is also something psychologically powerful about a man having to work within your availability. It signals that he is entering your world, not consuming it. He feels like he is earning moments with you instead of assuming them. That sense of earning builds pride, and pride strengthens attachment. When a man feels like he could lose access to you, not through drama, but through your quiet standards, he becomes more attentive. He double-checks plans. He follows through, he communicates more clearly. Because he understands that if he wastes your time repeatedly, someone else won't. Protecting your time also protects your emotional energy. When you're not constantly waiting around, wondering if plans will happen, rearranging your day at the last minute, you reduce anxiety. You create stability in your own life. And stability is attractive. At the end of the day, how you treat your time teaches people how to treat you. If you treat it like it's priceless, others will too. If you hand it out without structure, don't be surprised when it's undervalued. Your time is leverage. Use it wisely, and you won't have to chase. Self-focus creates attraction in a way that chasing never will. When your primary energy is directed toward building your own life instead of monitoring his behavior, something changes in the dynamic. You shift from trying to secure love to naturally attracting it, and that shift is powerful. Too often when a woman likes a man, she slowly begins centering her world around him. She checks her phone more than she checks her goals. She analyzes his tone more than she analyzes her progress. She spends more time wondering what he's thinking than developing her own vision. Without realizing it, she transfers her focus from self-growth to relationship maintenance, even when the relationship isn't fully established. But when you redirect that energy back to yourself, everything elevates. When you focus on your career, your education, your health, your spirituality, your passions, you start glowing differently. Not because you're trying to impress him, but because fulfillment is attractive. There is something magnetic about a woman who is excited about her own life. She walks differently. She speaks differently. She doesn't cling to conversations because she has things to do. She doesn't overthink silence because her mind is occupied with purpose. Purpose reduces desperation. When your life feels meaningful, you don't need constant reassurance to feel secure. You don't need him to text you every hour to feel important. You already feel important because you are building something. That internal validation changes how you interact with him. Men are drawn to women who have depth. When he sees that you have ambitions, hobbies, friendships, routines, when he realizes he is entering a life that is already full, he understands that he must add value, not become the value. That realization creates respect, and respect fuels attraction. Self-focus also changes your standards. When you are investing in yourself, you naturally expect someone who is doing the same. You become less tolerant of laziness, inconsistency, and excuses because you know the effort you are putting into your own growth. You begin to seek alignment, instead, attachment. And here's something important. When you are self-focused, you stop over-availability, not because you're playing hard to get, but because you genuinely have things to attend to. If he calls and you're at the gym, you finish your workout. If he texts and you're working on a project, you reply when you're free. That rhythm creates healthy space. It keeps the connection balanced. Space allows attraction to breathe. Constant closeness without individual identity suffocates desire. But when both people maintain their own lives, every interaction feels intentional rather than habitual. He looks forward to seeing you because he knows you're not just waiting around. Another powerful effect of self-focus is visibility. When you're active in your goals and social circles, other people notice you, not in a way that invites disrespect, but in a way that highlights your value. And when a man sees that you are admired, respected, and appreciated by others, it reinforces what he may have started to take for granted. Scarcity isn't just about time, it's about options. When he understands you have them, he moves differently. Self-focus also protects your emotional health. If the relationship shifts or ends, your entire identity doesn't collapse because you never abandoned yourself to begin with. You still have your routines, you still have your dreams, you still have your direction. That resilience is strength. The truth is, chasing drains your energy. Building fuels it. When you are building, you radiate confidence. And confidence is magnetic. You don't have to convince someone to see your worth when you're actively demonstrating it through how you live. When you make yourself the priority, the right man won't feel neglected. He'll feel inspired to rise and meet you. Detachment reveals true intentions in a way that attachment never can. When you are overly attached to an outcome, you tend to ignore red flags, justify inconsistency, and accept half effort because you are emotionally invested in making it work. But when you practice healthy detachment, you see clearly, you stop looking at potential and start evaluating patterns. Detachment does not mean you don't care. It means you care about yourself enough to remain objective. It means you allow a man's actions to speak louder than your hopes. When you're detached, you're not constantly trying to decode mixed signals. You're not creating stories to fill in gaps. You observe, you assess, and you respond accordingly. When you stop over-giving, over-texting, over-planning, and over-accommodating, you create space. And space forces decision. A man who genuinely values you will feel that shift and move toward you. He will initiate more. He will clarify his intentions. He will step up his consistency because he senses that access to you is no longer automatic. But a man who is only comfortable receiving without investing will not increase effort. He will become distant. He will do the bare minimum. He may even disappear. And while that might sting initially, it is clarity. It saves you months or years of confusion. It exposes whether he was serious or simply enjoying convenience. Attachment often blinds you to imbalance. You may find yourself thinking, he's just busy, he's stressed, he'll change, even when the pattern is clear. But detachment shifts your mindset from hoping to knowing. Instead of asking, why isn't he doing more? We begin asking, is this enough for me? That question alone changes everything. Detachment also protects your emotional stability. When you are deeply attached to someone's approval, every small shift feels like a threat. A delayed reply feels personal. A canceled plan feels devastating. But when you are detached, you don't crumble under uncertainty. You understand that someone else's behavior reflects their priorities, not your worth. And here's the powerful part. Detachment increases your attractiveness because it communicates abundance. When a man senses that you are not clinging to him as your only option, he feels competition, not necessarily from other men specifically, but from your standards, your lifestyle, your peace. He understands that you are choosing him, not depending on him. That distinction creates pressure in the right direction. Detachment also forces accountability. When you stop reminding him to call, stop suggesting plans every time, stop carrying the emotional weight, he has to decide whether he wants to participate fully or not at all. You are no longer compensating for his lack of effort. You are allowing him to either rise or remove himself. This is where many women get afraid. They think if I detach, I might lose him. But here's the truth. If detaching makes him leave, he was never fully there. You weren't losing something solid. You were holding on to something uncertain. Detachment doesn't destroy real interest. It exposes fake interest. It also strengthens your self-respect. When you detach, you're saying, I desire a partnership, not confusion. You're saying, I will not chase someone who isn't choosing me. That level of self-respect radiates confidence, and confidence commands attention. When a man realizes that you are not afraid to walk away from inconsistency, he understands that keeping you requires intention. He understands that your presence is conditional upon mutual effort. And for the right man, that doesn't scare him, it motivates. Detachment is not about pushing someone away. It's about standing firm in your value and allowing actions to reveal truth. And truth, even when uncomfortable, is always better than illusion.